second part of this day. I welcome you all and present in the room and our members online, and a special welcome to His Excellency Mr. Essete Telaun. I learned your name, Ambassador Plenipotentiary of Ethiopia and Special Envoy to Benelux countries, who is going to give his interventional speech after my welcome speech here. So, welcome to the interpreters again, and the language regime for this afternoon is English, French. So you can speak and listen to in English, French, Spanish, and Czech. And this meeting is going to be web streamed in English, French, and Spanish. Just to say a few words about this afternoon session. And first of all, the first part of this afternoon session, let's say. You might be aware that the UN convened a Food Systems Summit in 2021 with the aim to launch bold new actions to transform the way the world produces and consumes food, taking into consideration, of course, all 17 Sustainable Development Goals. As a follow-up of this first event or high-level summit, the UN General Secretary has committed to convene a global stocktaking meeting every 2 years to review progress in implementing the outcomes of this process. The first stocktaking moment took place in Rome in 2023, and the ESC, of course, contributed to it with its presence and with written contributions as well. The second stocktaking moment is going to take place in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on 27th and 29th July this year. It's going to be another opportunity to make progress, to document progress, let's say, strengthen accountability for transformative action, which you know is very needed, and it's one of the priorities of our committee as well. And indeed, I stress the importance of this very high-level cooperation with this process. That's why we are here today, because just to prepare this work, we organized this special part of the meeting. And as you might have seen from the program or from the agenda of this day, we gathered representatives from the UN Food System Coordination Hub, the European Commission, and from the civil society to explore the state of progress of the EU on the path to more sustainable, inclusive, and fair food systems. And as a first step after this meeting, or let's say the outcomes and the conclusions of this event is going to be presented by myself on Thursday this week in the regional preparatory meeting for Europe and Central Asia that will take place in Geneva. Okay, without further delay, I am going to give the floor, first of all, to Stefanos Fotou, who is online. The director, we know him very well, Office of Sustainable Development Goals. Stefano, press.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I think you can hear me, yes? All right.
Yes, we can hear you and see you. Thanks.
So thank you very much for the invitation. I've prepared a small presentation to run a little bit through the preparations for the second UN Food System Summit Stocktaking Moment. You said the venue and the dates. I would like to start by a note that this event, the Stocktake, is an event that stems from the UNFSS chair summary back in 2021, where the Secretary General committed to convene a global stocktaking every 2 years. We had the first in Italy in July 2023, and we're heading now, as you said, to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, 27 to 29 of July, with 27 of July being a kind of an action day and field visits, and 28 and 29 of July being the proper UNFSS +4, as we call it. I want to acknowledge the presence of the ambassador of Ethiopia and thank Ethiopia very much for the level of preparations that they have achieved so far. And also let me help Italy, which is a co-host of this event, together with Ethiopia. There's a draft concept note that has already been released by the Office of the Deputy Secretary General, which is leading the entire process. And these are the main objectives. The first, to reflect on what has been accomplished and the challenges that remain on food system transformation. The second, to talk about non-state actors, partnering, and accountability for outcomes. And the third, and extremely important, to focus on unlocking finance and increasing investments so countries can create environments that address barriers to investments. There's going to be two main documents to support this event. There's going to be a report of the Secretary General, which will be mainly informed from reports, voluntary reports that they are coming from member states, but also actions of the ecosystem of support and other UN initiatives. And we're working for this report right now. I will explain a little bit later what are the actions we have taken. And there's going to be an independent stakeholder document developed by non-state actors. And in the UN jargon, non-state actors, it's everyone that is not a government, so from civil society to private sector to organizations of women, farmers, indigenous peoples. The preparation process has three different levels: national, regional, and global. And I would say the national level is the most important, where we're asking the national food system conveners to steer multi-sectoral and participatory multi-stakeholder progress reviews discussion on the country and to submit voluntary reviews. We have shared the targeted questionnaire to all countries. We have received a lot of contributions so far, dozens of contributions, and we're expecting more. We have extended the deadline, which was 28th of March, but we can receive additional questionnaires in the next 2 weeks. And to complement the questionnaires, and maybe for some conveners that they don't have the time to do through a full written submission, we organize interviews with the national conveners. At the regional level, we are looking at stocktake meetings in each region. I'll show this in the next slide. And at the global level, we're going to have a global youth preparatory conference, global touch points with the conveners. We had already one on 24th of February, and briefings to permanent representation, which is done by the Executive Office of the Secretary General in New York. Here are the regional meetings. Actually, on 3 and 4 of April this week, on Thursday and Friday, we have the regional preparatory meeting for Europe and Central Asia that will happen in Geneva, in the building of the Economic Commission for Europe. And these preparatory meetings actually is meetings that we want to hear from the national conveners, from UN agencies, from civil society, academia, private sector, and other organizations to gather inputs that we contribute to how we organize the program of the UNFSS +4. I want to have a slide for the non-state actors, knowing the interest of the the European Economic and Social Commission. We do have a stakeholder advisory group in our hub, which will be responsible for the stakeholder report. We have a continuous engagement for the preparatory events, and also there will be opportunities for stakeholder events during the action day. But we have an open process for additional engagement, and I want to say that we have an open survey to all non-state actors all over the world, which is open until next week also, and maybe we'll give a little bit more time to non-state actors, civil society, employers, employees, farmers, private sector, to submit their opinions on the UNFSS follow-up process. We're also working with the Committee on Food Security. We coordinate with relevant UN agencies, and we are in direct coordination because a very special kind of engagement with the non-state actors is the youth, and we have an engagement with the Office of the UN Special Envoy on the Youth. We also have engagement with the coalitions of action that they came after the UNFSS. The European Union is member on 8 coalitions, if I remember well. So we have a call for submission of best practices to them. They are part of all preparatory meetings. We ask for specific inputs for the program, and also they will have the opportunity for events. This is a roadmap. It's a very busy roadmap that will bring us to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. You see a lot of preparatory meetings and a lot of other meetings that we engage, like the Nutrition for Growth that took place last week, the financing for development that it will be coming later in June, and of course the One Planet Network Conference of UNEP. And we have a roadmap for after the UNFSS +4 that includes important events like the World Food Forum in FAO, the Committee on Food Security, COP30, World Social Summit, and the UN Environment Assembly. Some of the crucial elements, I would say, for success is the national level preparations, the inputs for the UNFSS +4 documentation, and I'm asking to work with your government so they submit these voluntary reviews, but most importantly, you use your network of non-state actors, of the social, economic, environmental actors, civil society, to fill in the question. It's very important to have their views. Also, it's going to be important to identify additional milestones and increase engagement with the non-state actors. What we expect from multilateral institutions, as I said, is to support the national level preparation and provide inputs for the documentation. Also, support the stakeholder engagement process and advocate for the stakeholder survey. We would be really honored to see your participation and other multilateral institutions to the regional and other preparatory meetings, and of course, a very strong participation in Addis Ababa. Let me close with a map that shows to you what are some countries that they receive already technical support for the implementation of the pathways. And I would like to highlight here that most of this support, the financial contributions are coming from the European space, and all of them by EU countries except Norway. And I want to thank here all these countries, and also the European Union, the European Commission, DG INPA, for the support that they are giving to us. We're in direct contact with the unit of Mr. Leonard Mitzi, and also we have very good collaboration, as you know, with the EAC, with the Committee of the Regions, and we also want to start having some engagement with the EU Parliament. So, Madam President, I will stop here, and I would like to excuse myself to say that I will be able to stay for another 20 minutes, but then I have to catch up a plane and I will need to disappear. Thank you very much, Madam President. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fotu. You will be given the floor again after other interventions. Now, I would like to give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Esti Tilan, Ambassador, Plenipotentiary, as I mentioned at the beginning of our meeting. Thank you very much for coming, for your availability, and please deliver your statement. Thank you.
Ms. Piroska Kalai, President of the European Economic and Social committee.
Sorry, I am chairing this group.
Okay.
I am not the president.
Okay.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
you are presiding for today.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. And our colleague, Mr. Stefan, Director of the UN Food System Coordination Hub, the FAO. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to join you this afternoon and to participate in this important preparatory event of the second United Nations Food Systems Stocktaking high-level meeting scheduled to take place in Addis Ababa, 27 to 29 July this year. Ethiopia highly values the leadership of Italy and FAO, and also the commitment of the European Union in the work for preparation to ensure success of the meeting. We also commend the UN agencies and global partners for their continued support. Madam President, let me assure this gathering and those who are following us that Ethiopia will continue its collaboration with the co-chair Italy to ascertain success of the meeting. We strongly believe its outcome will be more action-oriented, as Mr. Stefan also has just stated. Ethiopia, to give you a bit highlight, has good experience in terms of hosting international conferences, and I wish to restate that preparations for the UNFSS +4 are well underway. We already organized the steering committee, operational committees, and they are working in close cooperation and coordination. A team from the UN Food Systems Coordination Hub also has visited Ethiopia. Our missions in Addis Ababa and in Rome has facilitated the mission. They did that on 19th and 20th February, and they confirmed really the preparedness of my country to host the meeting. Colleagues, Ethiopia is making significant progress in transforming the national food systems, cognizant to the UN Food Systems Summit commitments and Agenda 2063, which is usually a paper tiger, but we want to give it life by acting at national levels. I believe we have best practices in the agriculture transformation to share. And also we are looking forward and interested to learn from others. The effect of climate change on food security has become increasingly worrying, and therefore climate adaptive practices, sustainable farming, and improved market access are crucial to empower smallholder farmers to achieve food security. This particularly is very relevant for Africa. Most of the suppliers are small growers. It must be also seriously noted that rural small producers are behind our daily plates. This is a reality for Africa. But it is unfortunate that they are more affected by the adverse effect of climate change. And under the SDGs cardinal principles, we oftentimes talk that leaving no one behind. It will be very relevant for these small holders than others, and they need both technological and financial support. In Ethiopia, we have implemented a flagship initiative of food self-sufficiency as a basis for food sovereignty through irrigated wheat program, and it is already substantially increasing production. If we didn't take that endeavor this year, when you see an abrupt disruption of the USAID supply, which was the biggest humanitarian agency in Ethiopia, covering almost 60%, we would have been in a very, very deep trouble. So the wheat production has really supported us in that regard. In the same vein, and with the objective of improving household nutrition, His Excellency Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has launched a campaign that we call locally Lemat Trufat, slightly translated as bounty of the basket, to ensure household level nutrition. We are working on that. The other landmark initiative is our Green Legacy program, which is a success story in terms of reforestation and environmental sustainability. The program has provided impressive opportunities to increase production of fruits, because we are a tropical climate. Most of the trees are not only for beauty of ice like we have them here. Like 1/3 of the planting in the future will be fruit-bearing plants, and that will have a monumental implication, for instance, in terms of mango and papaya production. We are showing really a huge stride, and it is my hope, with some pragmatic laws and procedures in the European Union, you will have plenty of avocados from Ethiopia. Currently, the forest coverage is improving. We reached a bare minimum of 3%. It is so unfortunate. Until 2050, we are going to plant, until 2030, sorry, to plant over 50 billion seedlings. Currently, the forest coverage has reached 24%, which is really very, very important, because I'm mentioning this. Ethiopia was not food self-sufficient, and most of the time, thanks to our friends in the developed world, particularly Europe and US, have supported that endeavor, including the other like-minded, like Japan and so on. But we are now emerging from that quagmire. Some key policy and legal reforms were also necessary to change the agricultural practices and the investment in the sector. Accordingly, we have introduced new agriculture and rural development policy, rural land administration and use, as well as regulations that govern modernizing contracts in the farming sector. Much of the initiative in the rural areas depends on deployment of the agricultural extension service. Currently, we have deployed about 60,000 rural extension workers who are really trying to reach every village and advise our small growers how to improve productivity and sustainability of their production. Before I conclude, Madam President, in relation to this discussion, strengthening accountability and unlocking investment for transformative actions in the global food system, which ranges from production, supply chain, and consumption, I wish to summarize my remark with the following 4 points. Number one, it is necessary that regulatory frameworks for seed supply and distribution with the greater actors in the private sector participation is very important. This includes, in fact, foreign direct investment from different corners of the world to improve and foster productivity in food production. The second is there must be mechanism to continuously remind us, the global south, the global north, all actors, institutions, to fulfill past and future commitments. We made a lot of pledge, but we deliver less. So it is important to remind ourselves as a family in the international community. The third point is in the upcoming UNFSS +4 Stocktaking meeting, we expect that the process will provide mechanisms of achieving the targets, and the international community should really look into how many years are left to meet the pledge we made. The due date is just 2030. I trust it is only through doing so that documenting progress would mean something. We should not document our failure and excuses. We cannot afford, in my view, to fail again, and unfulfilled promises of the MDGs, SDGs has caused a lot of mistrust, so that should not repeat. This is a matter of stomach, and people would definitely look into it more seriously. So it is good that we coordinate. And finally, number 4, on this one, I was talking to Mr. Peter before we enter this hall, and we raised the issue of protecting multilateralism. Without a strong multilateralism, then particularly the global South cannot do better, and a committee like this one, strong advocacy institutions can play their role in terms of protecting multilateralism to achieve common goals. My final point is the latest lessons from the European Union farm to fork strategy, particularly in sustainable food production, processing, and distribution, can offer valuable insights for the global south. We know we are much or way behind in the food processing and supply chain in countries like Ethiopia, and we need to learn from the experiences here in Europe, and it is my conviction that the conference, the meeting in Addis, will bring this kind of insights to learn from each other. To conclude, let us work together to address global challenges and ensure sustainability in food production and food security for all. I believe that is part of the headway to human prosperity. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your statement. Now I give the floor to the Commission, to Mr. Olaf Heidelbach from DG Agri. We had DG Agri with us this morning as well, so thank you very much for coming to present your achievements towards sustainable agri-food systems. The floor is yours. Thank you.
And thanks a lot for inviting me today. It's a pleasure. Also thanks to the ambassador and congratulations to the achievements that Ethiopia made. I've talked to my colleague, of course, so I know approximately what he said. So I don't want to, I was actually asked to talk about, first of all, the EU achievements towards sustainability in agri-food systems, but also about the vision. So I've shortened the part on the vision because you had the commissioner also here in the plenary and you had my colleague this morning. Nevertheless, it might be interesting for some others here in this room to hear also a little bit about the vision. Yeah, so first of all, about the EU achievements towards sustainable agri-food systems, I think there are a number of achievements, but I would also like to mention some of the challenges that still remains, not only talking about achievements and forgetting the challenges. Well, we have around 9 million farmers in the EU. I would say a diverse farm structure across member states and regions. This has been also just pronounced in the council this morning with the member states who highlighted actually the differences in the farm structures, in the agricultural structures very much. We have an average age of farmers that is 57, which is high and is a major challenge, but we should also not forget that in many other developed countries, the average age is higher than in the EU. So not only seeing as a challenge, but also maybe as some kind of achievement that the farmers are not older than 57. We have a productive agriculture sector, and the EU is and will continue to be self-sufficient, I think, also according to our forecast for many products, and we have also constant trade surplus for agriculture products. Also thanks to the high quality and safe foods that is very much thought after by our trade partners. We have also achieved a lot, I think, with regard to environmental targets. For many of the targets set in the Green Deal, and the ambassador was referring to the Farm to Fork strategy, which is part of the Green Deal, we are on a good way. And some of these achievements are also reflected in our SDG monitoring. So we are certainly fully committed to the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and the SDGs. We are monitoring, or Eurostat is monitoring actually our progress towards the SDGs along a set of 102 indicators, and the EU indicator set has been carefully selected in cooperation with a large number of stakeholders based on certain criteria. The indicators are assessed on an annual basis in the short term, but also over a long-term 15 years period. So I would not speak about all the indicators, but just like to run you through the indicators for SDG 2 for the EU, which is no hunger, so we can see where are the achievements, but also where are the areas where we still need to improve. I can provide the link to the report later, but I deliberately chose not to have a PowerPoint presentation as my colleague had this morning. So looking at the different indicators for SDG 2, I start with an area where we still have challenges, which is malnutrition, in fact. Maybe another kind of malnutrition that Ethiopia has, but we have certainly not made progress when it comes to obesity. So since 2017, there has been no change, basically, with regard to the obesity rate in the EU. It looks better when talking about and looking at the indicators for sustainable agriculture production. And we had basically 4 indicators there. One is the agricultural real factor income that increased quite a lot by 2023 compared to 2018. This is 23 index points, basically. It's a lot. So good progress there. When it comes to government support to agriculture R&D, I think which is very much important for innovation of the sector, we also see an increase of almost 30% since 2017. We spent in the EU more than 3.5 billion on agricultural R&D. Organic farming is also one of our farm-to-fork indicators. Actually, we saw an increase of around 3 percentage points since 2016. We are around 10% basically of utilized agricultural area in the EU. Then another and the last indicator in this category is the use and risk of chemical pesticides in the 2021 in the years. Where we saw a decrease of 34% or 34 index points since 2016. So this takes into account the absolute consumption, but also the risk of the pesticides. Many of the high-risk pesticides have been banned in the EU. So we also need to look for alternatives because obviously farmers need pesticides or biocides to fight against pests and diseases. Looking at the last category of indicators is on the environmental impacts of agricultural production, where we have 4 indicators. First one is ammonia emissions from agriculture. This has decreased by about 7% since 2016. The nitrate in groundwater also a decrease of 5% since 2016. Then soil erosion is an area where we are not doing so good. So no change, hardly any change since 2010. So we need to work on that. And then the last one, we are really not doing well, which is the farmland bird index. So this is a biodiversity indicator, which went down again, I have to say, by 7 index points since 2017. So biodiversity is certainly an area where we need to take care of. And it is also reflected in the biodiversity strategy, which is part of the Green Deal. Furthermore, I would like to mention that the EU has the only major food system that has managed to reduce absolute greenhouse gas emissions since 1990. Progress in absolute emission reduction has been stalled, though, in recent years. But we keep on decreasing greenhouse gas emissions intensity. This means per unit of produce. As a follow-up to the UNFSS, the Commission is engaged in 8 coalitions, and Stefanos has mentioned the coalitions of action. Personally, I'm involved, for example, in the Sustainable Productivity Coalition, which has done some tremendous work in gathering stakeholders around this topic, in disseminating best practices, in increasing agricultural productivity in a sustainable way, and in measuring sustainable productivity growth. And many of the best practices that are also presented in an annual compendium of best practices are also from Africa, including from Ethiopia. Now, the second part of my speech is on the vision. I said I'll try to stay relatively short. You have seen we have published this vision. You have read it on the 19th of February, a bit more than a month ago. This is one of the deliveries of the 100 days of the new Commission's mandate, where we dedicated actually to deliver on what we promised. And in very close cooperation with the ones most concerned, in this case, the farming and the food sector. We are all aware of the challenges, geopolitical challenges. I'm just mentioning Russia's unjustified military aggression against Ukraine, which also has tremendous impact on developing countries, on African countries, for example, in ensuring their food security. yeah, in these challenging times, I think we need a clear perspective and coherent policy responses for everyone involved in guaranteeing our food security and food sovereignty. So these words and these topics are coming back also to the EU. It was always in the objectives of the Common Agricultural Policy, this food security objective, but it's now more pronounced, and more important, and more, I think, in the perspective of our citizens as well. The vision the College has adopted a month ago is the result of close engagement and consultation also with many different stakeholders from the agri-food sector. It's an outcome of the strategic dialogue and also dialogue with the Economic and Social Committee. So thank you very much for this good cooperation. I think the messages in the vision are clear. In order to have a productive and sustainable farming sector, we must have also farmers staying and entering in the profession. Farming, fisheries and food are strategic sectors and a critical asset for Europe. I think this is very clear from the political agenda of the Commission as well. So it has regained importance, I would say. And the vision identifies food sovereignty and security as an integral part of the overall security agenda of the EU. I think our policies will continue supporting farmers, fishers and agri-food sectors and must be also tailored to local needs. And one of the key elements of the policy approach for the future will be also to aim at a working balance between regulation, incentives and investments. And this is spelled out in the vision. So we have a guiding question for the vision that was how to build and support an agri-food system that is attractive for current and future generations today, tomorrow and in 2040. And now my last one is the 4 priority areas in the vision. I'm not going in the details for all of them, just for one. So first priority area is an attractive and predictable agri-food sector that ensures a fair standard of living and leverages new income opportunities. Another one is, or the second priority area is a future-proof agri-food sector that works hand in hand with nature. And the third one is strengthening the link between food and consumers and promoting fair living and working conditions in vibrant and well-connected coastal and rural areas. The priority area I would like to talk a little bit more in detail on, just 4 or 5 points, is a competitive and resilient agri-food sector in the face of rising global challenges as we are in this field. Today I will dive a little bit further into this as we're talking about the UNFSS follow-up. So firstly, our farmers demand a fair global competition as well, and the vision clearly states that we will push for a fairer global level playing field by better aligning, also in line with international rules, our domestic production standards with those applied to imports, notably for pesticides and animal welfare. The vision identifies European food security as an integral part of the security agenda of the EU. I've mentioned that. Europe's agriculture sector is strong, but we also must recognize that the EU's food sovereignty depends to an extent also on imported inputs. For example, fertilizers, feed and energy. So we are not completely self-sufficient on these. So we have these strategic dependencies, but we would like to reduce them. We are an important trade bloc. We are still depending on trade. We would like to continue to depend on trade as well. We are exporting, so we also need to import. So we will certainly not aim at completely reducing these dependencies, but or eliminating these dependencies, but just on reducing them. We are also aiming at developing a more comprehensive approach to risk and crisis management and reinforcing incentives for farmers to boost farm-level adaptation, so climate change adaptation as well, and improve access to affordable insurance and de-risking tools for primary producers. I think this is very important if we want to keep farmers in production. Lastly, the Commission will deliver 2 simplification packages in 2025 to also reduce the administrative burden for farmers and the entire agri-food value chain. yeah, let me conclude by saying that we will work very closely with all parties involved in to further develop the key issues and initiatives announced, including with you, with the ESC. There are a few key initiatives on which we will work together across the Commission with other DGs. So the vision implementation, in fact, is not only for DG Agri, but for many other DGs that are involved in the delivery. We will start with a wine package, as it is a sector very much affected also by climate change. We will follow up with a simplification proposal, and then the generational renewal strategy that will come probably just after summer. And of course the Future Cup that will be all delivered in the coming few months. So this vision I talked about helps providing direction and predictability to Europe's agri-food system, and invites for discussion on the ways to make solutions that are tailored and pragmatic. So I would like to ask you to continue working together, cooperating with you. Getting inputs from you is very important for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your speech in this regard. And now we've got 10 minutes left for questions. So please, if you have questions or short comments, please raise your hand. Andreas, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question. I'm not sure if Stefanos Fotiou is still there, but probably not. So I'm asking myself, since now all of you explained a very well, it's a very complex exercise, this UN Food System Summit and the process around, and I'm asking myself, what are actually the achievements of this process so far? So the summit was in 2021. There was a stocktaking moment. Now this year is another one. What was achieved so far through this initiative? Since there's a lot of energy behind its preparatory meetings and so forth. So what would you say was the main achievement so far in this process, towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals 2030? This is my question. The question I cannot answer. So it's a very complex process. What was one, two, three examples what would we not have if this process wouldn't have been started by the UN Secretary General? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andreas. Other questions, comments to the ambassador as well? Okay, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. That is the fundamental questions that everybody asks, not only on this initiative, but the big ones like the Millennium Development Goals and the Sustainable Development Goals. We made a lot of covenants, but in terms of their implementation, we mostly lag behind. You can also see how much pledge that humanity has made for COP, for instance, and what does that yield in terms of implementability is always a challenge for each of us. But the importance of this kind of gatherings is, in my view, threefold. Number one, it inspires goal setting for individual countries. In any way, implementations always goes down to individual countries, and when you go to a particular country, to community levels and so on. So it sets somehow the inspiration, and it is good. It sends the message. across. The second point is the awareness creation. The awareness creation part of it. You have this plenty of media and what have you. They never talk about this kind of things other than the crisis unfolding and so on. What has brought those crises, why humanity has reached at this level, needs to be communicated, and it gives an opportunity for that. And the final point is, though very weak and limited, there are some resources raised from different corners. The reality of Europe can be different, but for the rest of the global south, it is very important in terms of resource mobilization from the multinationals and what have you. They demonstrate a bit of social responsibility when you have this kind of gathering. They will be part of it. They will be part of the discussion. So I see this merits in the discussions. And the challenges are very eminent, very, very clear. What our EU colleague has stated, for instance, is the issue of soil erosion and the level of increasing acidity of soil. So sometimes the earth itself is sending us a signal, I need some rest and do something to treat nature, to sustain, the growing number of population and so on. So this conference, I think, will also definitely look into that, not only the climate change side of it, but how the artificial fertilizer is also affecting soil sustainability and so on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, also thanks for this question. I think I can really only agree with Ambassador. And maybe just add that, I mean, concretely, you have seen some of the targets I have presented, basically, for the EU food systems. So actually, each country, or we as the EU, we have a national pathway developed that is linked to the UNFSS process. And in the national pathway, in ours, we are referring to Green Deal and Farm to Fork targets. So we have actually aligned, first of all, our policies to SDG targets. Then second of all, UNFSS as well. And well, I've presented some of the achievements and progress. So this is very concrete. We have looked at what the international community has also agreed. But in the end, of course, each country decides on own targets, but they're all linked to sustainable food systems. I think we have achieved quite a lot already when it comes to chemical pesticides, for example, but also with regard to agricultural production and productivity growth. And this is very concrete. So we have to look for each country, of course, what the achievements are. There has been some regress in certain areas, but I think for many countries, you find also a lot of progress. In Ethiopia, I know that you have done a tremendous job in really going in the last villages and increasing productivity and export potential. So I think these are really very concrete examples, to be honest.
Thank you very much. Peter, please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you, President. I would like to underpin this, what you have been saying, Excellency, and Olaf was saying, because this kind of questions are coming quite often from Europe or from let me say, countries which have more or less their food systems. And we think that in this environment in which we are acting is anyway well prepared for delivering on SDG 2. And never forget SDG 1. So this is something which has to be in mind and fully underpin the points. But there's one extremely important aspect, and Mr. Ambassador, you mentioned it in the end. It's the multilateralism, because this kind of awareness which we get through this kind of processes, also as Europeans, are for us very important. And I don't mean that only in terms of a humanitarian aspect, it's also in terms of an economic aspect. that we learn what in other regions of the world, which kind of systems we do have, and how we can learn from that, from them. Because in some areas, they are able to deal with different challenges and crises much better than we expect. Because with our richness which we have, we just invest, we just do it, and we produce. So other areas have much more scarcities, whether it's in terms of water, in terms of soil. You mentioned the soil issue. So that means we are able, through this kind of multilateral organized processes from each other, and we also find a way to say, okay, this is an aspect which we can learn, but we also can support or can get support. So that's why all elements of multilateralism is not only peace building, it is also helping us learning our own processes to understand and to increase and to improve these processes. So there's not always one point what we say, now this is a result, let's put it on paper, and that's what we have learned. And you mentioned the climate or the conference of the partners. So this is something, sometimes we come out and are a bit frustrated, but what counts is that the global community is coming together and keeps, the community keeps the dialogue and the conversation on each other. So this is what we must really stress, that this element in these times where we have more and more polarization is something what we, especially as European Economic and Social Committee, as Europeans, must foster much more, because Europe was built on this dialogue, was founded on the ruins, and we started with a proper dialogue in Europe, and this kept until today. And that's something what we must stress. That's why I'm happy when we have this kind of questions, Andreas. The question is correct to say, what is the result? Concretely, sometimes, but in terms of community building, in terms of multilateralism, in terms of dialogue, in terms of democracy building, this kind of projects are, I find, extremely important. I have learned it the last 10 years. They are extremely important, that we keep us together, we keep us in touch in order to support, but also to learn. It's not that this is a one-way ticket.
Thank you very much, Peter, for this. I totally agree with what you said on dialogue issue, for example, because I myself, for example, at Hungarian level, let's say, I see a lot of achievements since from your vision, from what you, Excellency, you said. So dialogue has started, which is absolutely led or heeded heading in the right direction, I mean. So thank you very much again, since we are running out of time. So thank you again for your statement, and for the Commission as well, and Mr. Fotu, who is already left. Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to my great colleague, Andreas Turner, who is going to moderate the next panel. Andreas, the floor is yours. Would you like to come here or moderate? Okay, great. So whatever you want.
Okay, so dear colleagues, good afternoon also from my side. We are going to continue our discussions and reflections on the UN Food Systems Summit process, more or less. And as we have learned, or if you do the math, we have 2025 this year. So 5 more years, or in the UN language, they very often talk about harvests. So 5 more harvests to go, and then we should be actually there in achieving the 2030 targets. And yeah, so as we have learned, not an easy process, and sometimes, or during the last years, we even saw developments unfortunately, in the wrong direction when it comes to undernourished people. So there was even an increase of these numbers. Now, looking into the next, into the next panel, and I think all the work here, I'm not sure if Biroshka mentioned this already, I would say, contributes to the preparation of our committee, of our permanent group, towards delivering input in this process. And I think later on this week there is the regional conference in Geneva. The first panel brings us now looking into the driving processes towards the Sustainable Development Goals and the role of the EU leadership in this global context. And for this, we have with us Leonard Mizzi, Head of Unit, Sustainable Agri-Food Systems and Fisheries in DG INTBA. Welcome also to you, Leonard. And online with us is Karen Haag. She represents UNICEF, the Unit Nutrition and Food Systems agenda in Europe and Central Asia. So this is the UN, let's say, capacity for the Children's Fund, UNICEF. And I think we will start with Karen Haag, if she is with us for first introductory remarks. We 10 minutes. We have 10 minutes time dedicated to Ms. Haag. And without further ado, I would hand over to you, Karen.
Thank you so much, Andreas, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this meeting. Can I? Yeah, there we go. So today you'll be hearing a little bit about the role of UNICEF in transforming food systems for children. And really in terms of the context of the UN the UN sort of food systems summit and the dialogues, a lot of UNICEF's work focuses more so on the Action Track 1, which aims to ensure access to safe and nutritious foods for all. We know that every child has the right to nutrition, and today the need for diets, services and practices that protect, promote and support good nutrition for all children has never been greater. In the previous 2 decades, we've seen remarkable progress in a reduction in the proportion of children who are underweight. However, we are seeing for the first time that the proportion of children who are overweight is actually outnumbering those who are underweight. So there's more work to be done. Our latest data indicate that at least 1 in 3 children is not growing well because of malnutrition, either under or overnutrition. And at least 2 in 3 children are not eating what we would call the minimum diet they need to grow, develop and learn to their full potential. Next slide, please. So UNICEF's focus on the food system, we centre around the impact on children and adolescents. We know that the food system comprises policies, actors and services needed to ensure children's access to good diets. And when we say good diets in UNICEF, we define it as diets that are nutritious, safe, affordable and sustainable. However, food systems often fail to account for the nutrition rights and special nutritional needs of children and adolescents when determining what foods need to be produced, processed, packaged and marketed. Therefore, the food system needs to operate in ways that ensure nutritious, safe, sustainable diets are affordable and available. It needs to empower children, adolescents and families to demand foods that are nutritious, safe and sustainable, and it needs to create healthy food environments for children. And we know the evidence shows that when nutritious and safe foods are available, it's easier for families to make those choices. Next slide, please. UNICEF's response continues to evolve towards what we call a multidimensional systems approach that addresses all forms of malnutrition. So from this slide, you can see the food system is at the centre, but we need other systems such as social protection, which should be robust enough so that low-income households are able to buy an adequate amount of food that is nutritious and healthy. The education system has an important role to play in ensuring foods provided in schools are nutritious and that the school environment supports healthy choices and incentives for children to be physically active. The health system is crucial for delivering public health interventions designed to prevent all forms of malnutrition and in providing treatment service where and when necessary. Next slide, please. So the way we tackle improvements to food systems is by focusing on these three key pillars. We aim to improve children's diets, what foods children eat. We aim to improve the children's food environments and practices. The work that we do under these focus on improving actions through public policy, guidelines and standards and food supply chains, including fortified foods, food supplements and therapeutic foods for treating undernutrition and micronutrient deficiencies. Improving children's food environments focuses on where children live, where they learn, so in schools, where they play, through, again, actions in public sector policies and programs, and in private sector through advocacy for reformulation of products and business practices. And finally, in the third pillar, improving children's food practices, we do this through supporting policies, strategies and programs that promote positive individual behaviours, caregiver practices, and changing some of those social norms that can be harmful. Next slide, please. UNICEF is reinvigorating efforts to improve the nutrition of school-aged children through a focus on the school nutrition environments and how these can be optimised to prevent all forms of malnutrition, including overweight. First, many children across the region who start school are already experiencing one or more forms of malnutrition. And we heard just from our colleague previously that malnutrition in the form of obesity is on the rise in Europe. School environments promote healthy diets, and good nutrition can contribute to catch-up growth among adolescents who have suffered from early life nutritional deficiencies and help to establish lifelong healthy diets and nutrition practices. The rates of school attendance are very high in the Europe and Central Asia region, and these high enrolment rates mean that a large number of children can be reached through policies and programs in the school environment, very much like what the European Child Guarantee, the school food meals program, is doing. Thirdly, as children age, they do become increasingly autonomous in what they choose, and nutrition, communication and literacy interventions can have a real and significant impact on their dietary intakes, with potential benefits extending to households and families. Next slide. The other way that we're improving the foods that children and families eat is through large-scale food fortification. So micronutrient deficiencies as a form of malnutrition does remain a challenge across this region. Despite investments over the decades in setting up and supporting large-scale food fortification infrastructure and advocacy for mandatory legislation, there is still a lot of improvement needed to ensure the gains that we have made are not lost due to competing agendas. Large-scale food fortification remains one of the most cost-effective strategies for improving the nutritional status of the general population and should be included in the National Food Systems Pathways and Action Plans. Next slide. So we've heard already that overweight is becoming the predominant form of malnutrition, not just in Europe and Central Asia, but globally. Nutritious foods in the earliest years of life is the cornerstone of a child's development. Yet, as I mentioned earlier, 2 in 3 children between the ages of 6 months and 2 years of age are not getting the nutritious diets they need to grow well. Foods high in sugar, fat or salt can set children on the path to unhealthy food consumption, overweight and diet-related diseases, and this is exactly what we're seeing from the data trend for Europe and Central Asia. Next slide. Our primary focus is to support governments to transform their food systems by prioritising a prevention approach. UNICEF is collaborating with the WHO to support member states to achieve their national goals under the Acceleration Plan to Stop Obesity, which covers a range of best buy interventions, including development, implementation and enforcement of regulations and other legal measures, such as the compliance with the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes, sugar-sweetened beverage taxes, restrictions on marketing of unhealthy foods to children, just to name a few. Next slide, please. The data is clear that the consequences of unhealthy food environments are grave and lifelong, undermining the right to health and adequate nutrition in childhood and jeopardising the futures of children, communities and nations. Children's food environments is now dominated by unhealthy processed foods and drinks that are widely accessible and heavily marketed. In our discussions with families and mothers, they've confirmed that unhealthy processed and ultra-processed foods and beverages are well established in children's diets. In some cases, these foods and drinks are introduced before the recommended period of exclusive breastfeeding. So that means that children as young as less than 6 months old are consuming these products. Mothers in focus groups have reported that 1 in 3 children have consumed at least one unhealthy food or drink in the previous day of the survey. Caregivers feed these products to their children, even if they know they're unhealthy, because these foods are highly available, they're cheap, they're quick to prepare, they're convenient, and readily accepted by children. Some products are marketed with misleading nutrition claims because legislation to prevent the inappropriate marketing of food and beverages to children is missing, inadequate, or poorly implemented. UNICEF therefore supports countries to develop and implement these policies, including the laws restricting marketing of unhealthy foods and beverages to children. And we're in the process of developing a model law that will help member states and countries to do so. Next slide. We can't underscore the importance of youth engagement, particularly in policy advocacy. UNICEF engages with children and adolescents to gain their perspectives on food, the food environments, the food practices and transformation they desire in their food systems. In doing this, we've supported food system dialogues with more than 700 children and adolescents in more than 20 countries under the umbrella of the Fix My Food campaign. Next slide. We've successfully established this youth-led advocacy movement, Fix My Food, which was launched in 5 new countries last year, including Fiji, Jamaica, Mongolia, South Africa and Vietnam, and will be further expanded in the Europe and Central Asia region this coming year. This initiative empowers youth to advocate for healthier food environments in their schools, in their communities and in their countries. Fix My Food focuses on amplifying the lived experiences of young people, stories that are undeniable and compelling to inspire action and drive change, and particularly contribute to the policy dialogue that's needed. Next slide, please. And then we need to keep clicking. This one. So this just shows you across the different countries and regions. Again, click again. The growing global youth movement of Fix My Food. Next slide. So let me conclude by reiterating that UNICEF shall continue supporting national, regional and international efforts, including through the UN Food System Summit Stocktaking Moment, to transform the food system for children and to work towards these 4 broad outcomes, whereby governments, and in this case also including the Commission, develop and enforce mandatory policies and regulations that ensure nutritious and affordable food and healthy and sustainable food environments for all children. That all children are protected from the harmful impact of inappropriate promotion, marketing and advertising of unhealthy foods. That the food industry complies with government policies and regulations and is incentivised to do the right thing for all children. And that families, caregivers and children themselves learn about healthy food preferences and have access to it and demand nutritious foods. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, for your contribution and for sharing with us what UNICEF is actually doing in the field of contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals, to achieving them. So quite a lot of initiatives which have been shared by you with us. I was not aware that actually the issue of overweight and obesity is actually even becoming more and more a problem in this context. You referred to the rise in this development, especially in the European Union, but also globally. And I think the fact that 2 out of 3 children are in a malnutrition condition is actually quite worrying. And so I think, as we learned earlier already, about well, the role of education, of literacy, might be a very important one there. Once you are in a situation that you actually, well, that you can focus on education, and if you are in a situation that this and you are not, starving, and in a social situation that you are thinking of other problems than actually a healthy and balanced diet. Thank you very much, Karen, for your contribution, and I would suggest that before we go in a Q&A session, that we invite Leonardo for his contributions from the side of the European Commission. So what is the European Commission doing in contributing to this multilateral process? Leonardo, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thanks. Microphone for the speaker, please. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Andreas. Thanks to the Economic and Social Committee. Thanks, Piroshka and Martin, with whom we have been having what I call an updating process on the UN Food System Summit from time to time. And actually, coming after UNICEF is very timely, because we just came from Nutrition for Growth in Paris. I don't know whether some of you followed, but Karen, we met your executive director, Karen Russell, with Lahbib, who is our Commissioner for Humanitarian Operations, and our DDG Marietta Jager, actually last week. And I don't know whether you heard that the European Union showed strong leadership with our member states, with a 6.5 billion firepower for Nutrition for Growth. This is a clear signal that the European Union and member states want to show business. The baseline of the European Commission INTPA ECO portfolio is until 2027. As you know, we can't go beyond 2027 because we are sort of fixed by the current MFF, but the member states could show flexibility, like the Dutch had already committed funds for up to 2030. France has committed 750 million plus, and you will find the list in the communique that was released. And Svenja, who is a colleague of mine and was also part of the team on N4G, Philip on my left, I will explain a bit the dynamics for the future. We can give you the latest that came out from Paris. Because we have been showing leadership. I don't know whether you discussed this, but there is a massive problem out there in terms of gaps. Gaps in terms of multilateralism. Just to give you a concrete example, in 2021, at the last Nutrition for Growth, the Americans pledged 11 billion. Last week, the Americans pledged 0. So, and that will happen across the multilateral field. We are in very complicated geopolitical moments. 2025 marks a very complex situation which requires a wake-up call, not within the European Union on its own, but across the globe. Because the situation is not a nice one. And we can speak about funds, and we can speak about regulations, and we can speak about summits. Andreas, you asked the right question, what comes out of the summits? And the ambassador and Olaf mentioned the awareness raising, goal setting, resources, but this is not going to be enough. And we risk entering into what I call summit fatigue without a big player like the US, but also a soul-searching exercise from the European Union where, you know, the firepower is not there of many of our member states. So I think what the Economic and Social Committee can contribute between now and when the summit takes place in July and we can explain a bit what we are trying to do in Geneva with our delegation, because they will take the floor for the EU, is first of all that you as committee rally also with our line DGs, Agri being one, but Sante, we are about 9 DGs involved on this file. But you need to rally the member states, because this is not just the European Commission here. This is all EU. And what we achieved in Paris was a rallying of support across the member states with the Commission. If we want to show leadership, it can't just be a bit of Commission, a bit of member states, 1 or 2 here. That will not do the trick. So we want you to be the voices across the 27 capitals, because UN Food Systems Summit is EU 27 plus the globe. Meaning, first of all, we need to show leadership across the EU 27. And here we speak not only about Agri or Sante or Mare, we speak about what civil society, and you have Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, what civil society in the various groups and how to feed it within this study group and within the Economic and Social Committee. And if I recall well, also there was also a position in the past of the Economic and Social Committee in the run-up to the summits. What do you want or you expect in terms of contributing to the debate, and not just speaking about process? What can you put on the table which can show leadership? I was in a session with Action contre la faim, so this was a big platform, and with Concord, you need to give us a bit, not only a process, because we are excellent in process as European Union, but we need to be in delivery mode. And a delivery is not only a funding issue. The funding is important. We are always proud, and we have been proud, and we showed the funding dimension last week. But it's not only a question of funding here. It's a question of coordination. It's a question of giving leadership. It's a question, when you have funding, of accompanying. It's a question of geopolitics. You can't try to solve all the problems around the globe with the funding you have, so you need to choose your allies. Who are your allies? How do you position your allies? Within Africa, within Asia-Pac, within Latin America, within the small island developing states. So what we want to do in terms of Commission services, and we have an inter-service group which I mobilized last week, and after Geneva we will take stock. Just to recall that in 2022 we agreed across the Commission services to focus on 8 coalitions. These are building blocks which feed into the UN Food Systems Summit landscape. And just to recall, there's one on waste, so food waste. This is also mentioned in the vision, for example. What can we contribute on food waste in terms of reducing food waste? In terms of using waste as a leveraging into the bioeconomy strategy. Bioeconomy also mentioned in the vision. Chef de file being environment, but I think you also have a role on the bioeconomy. Bioeconomy is a cross-cutting issue, and then a strategy is going to be updated with an action plan following up on previous strategies. So this is something I think you, as Economic and Social Committee, have a role to play, including on food waste, linked also to the COP processes and to greenhouse gas emissions coming from waste, and how to recycle, using also waste in terms of fertilizers, and also an important pillar of the vision for agriculture. So this is something that I think you, Group 1, Group 2, Group 3, have a role to play as well, to give us ideas and proposals. Second, healthy diets. UNICEF mentioned there is clearly a problem of all forms of malnutrition, including obesity and overweight, even in the developing countries. Olaf mentioned it's not only in the European Union, especially young people, but it's across the developing world, where you can have stunting, wasting, but also overweight and obesity, rural-urban typologies, but also mixed in terms of certain households. So the question of healthy diets, the vision gives a bit of ideas in terms of labeling, but the question is, what is a healthy diet? There is controversy about healthy diet, about the affordability, about how do you position healthy diets in a complexity of affordability in terms of what is available in retail outlets, in food deserts or not food deserts. European Union, we are in a comfortable position, not in all countries or all regions, however, so that's also something where on healthy diets, some ideas, what I call out of the box or innovative ideas could also be considered. Then we have school meals. This is the most popular topic in our member states. More than 15 member states support the School Meals Coalition. UNICEF also mentioned it. We have a portfolio in around 15 countries. Clearly, the models of France and Finland, who are the main proponents of school meals within the EU, can't be emulated in the Afghanistans and Yemens of this world, but we have a number of school meals operations in developing countries, and clearly the school meals narrative within the EU gets traction because it's popular. School meals make a lot of sense when you have sustainable finance backing them up. The moment you have problems of finance within school meals, the system collapses. But we know that there are good stories where you have school meals, you have enrollment rates which are better, where it gives girls and adolescents empowerment, and there is a good narrative. So we are following closely. You might recall that this also was a big deliverable in the G20 under the Brazilian presidency. Now South Africa takes over in the G20, and this is, I would say, low-hanging fruit, where also I think the Economic and Social Committee can take a role, mainly from the European Union member states. But if you have external dynamics, we are more than welcome. A topic which you don't mention, but we handle it in INTPA, it's mainly with Mare, it's blue. It's the blue and aquatic foods, and this is also important. We tend to focus on land, but even again, the vision mentions marginally the Ocean Pact and the blue foods. Why? Because before the UN Food System Summit, there is an important summit, which is the One Ocean Summit. Yes, Andreas, we have yet another summit, but that's life. We have lots of summits out there. But there will be a summit on aquatic, on blue, and I think also from those who come from the coastal countries, this is a very top priority also because this has a diversification of the diets when you have aquatic blue foods as part of your diet in terms of proteins. The question is in terms of sustainability of aquatic systems, and we have a portfolio also with Germany, a big portfolio called Fish for ACP, which we profile, and we have just signed a contract of 20 million with FAO on pushing aquatic foods as part of the food systems diet, because it's not only agri, but it's also blue. So again, an offer to you as Economic and Social Committee, how do you position the blue, the aquatic foods, in the constellation of both the diets, but also sustainability of aquaculture and fisheries systems in Greece, in Italy, in country I know best, Malta, Cyprus, wherever, it can be also the Scandinavians. The blue dimension comes across the different member states. Then we have agroecology, also a file which is close to our heart, also mentioned in the vision. Organic agroecology, not the same thing, but what I call close sisters or brothers or cousins, has a lot of traction in a number of member states. And we have a strong portfolio which embeds what was mentioned, soil health, part of the agroecology movement, but also bottom-up approach involving farmers' organizations, and a bottom-up approach in terms of rollout of R&I, of research and innovation. And that we can also share with you. We just came out from a big conference that we organized earlier this month, where we can show what we do under the ZERA and the ZERA lift in terms of our external dynamics of agroecology. Then three others, I don't want to enter into details. One, Zero Hunger Coalition. HDP is the Humanitarian Development Peace Nexus Coalition, where we support ECHO and INTPA engagement through our global report on food crisis, and the next report will come out in May. Clearly, the figures on acute hunger will not be any better. These are the Sudans, the South Sudans, the Yemens, the Afghanistans of this world. You mentioned, why do we do summits? I give you one simple answer, Andreas. If we don't do summits and we don't try to really support both political, the file of food systems falls into the cracks. Because there are so many priorities out there that the question is, including here in Europe, including within the EU, beyond agri here. We're speaking now cross-cutting and strategic geopolitical. How much do you hear food systems being top in the agenda of our political masters? And this is somewhat a wake-up call also to have food systems at the highest level in our capitals, not only energy, not only digital, not only medicines, all of them are important, but also food. So I would say this is a bit of a wake-up call to put this on the agenda compared to other hot topics in a geopolitical context, from Ukraine to the Balkans, to the MENA neighborhood, to Africa, to Asia Pacific. And last but not least, clearly, that we, after Geneva, can come back to you, the Committee of the Regions, because I think this is important, the regional dynamics of all this and how regions to regions can also support each other. And hopefully, we also finance, and Philippe is in charge of the support we give to the hub. We want to show good stories landing in the countries, meaning showing leadership of what we do in the countries that we identified, and we can't prioritize 100 countries. We are prioritizing a group of countries, and with member states, we are probably in a region of 15 to 20 countries. If we look into what Ireland and Germany and other member states are doing across our UN Food Systems Summit country pathway support, and we want to show impact on the ground. That is, I think, the most important deliverable that we want to show as European Union and Commission services, impact on the ground, transformational approach, and also the geopolitical, because here we are in the realm of geopolitics. We need to show that Europe matters. It's not a question of greenwashing, but it's also a question of understanding them, accompanying them, and before we will have with Agri and EU-AU ministerial in Rome on the 27th of June, and hopefully we start having more allies with us in terms of what our vision is. The vision for agriculture and food is a pathway, is a proposed pathway, but beyond that, what we want to do on bioeconomy, on diets, on nutrition for growth follow-up, across a system which is extremely complicated because it does not fall on one DG or on one policy area, but it is bundled across many policy areas, and it is interconnected. And that is what is the challenge in this, is the interconnection food, biodiversity, climate, in a nutrition-sensitive approach.
Thank you very much, Leonardo, for sharing with us the activities and priorities which the Commission does in this perspective. So it's a an inclusive exercise. You mentioned nine DGs involved in this work, it sounds like the European Union and the European Commission has kind of a leading role in these discussions and in this work. What are the other allies in this field when we look at other developed countries and regions? Who would be, beside the European Union, who are the front runners in this matter? Dear colleagues, we have now, if I'm not mistaken, about 6 minutes time for a discussion if we would like to stick to our time schedule. So before I hand over to Leonardo for the question, are there any other questions from your side? Remarks, reflections in where we're going? Yes, please. actually we haven't introduced, despite we are sitting next to each other, my colleague from Finland, please.
Yes, thank you. Is it on? Okay. Yes, so my name is Juha Berlin-Pumel, and I'm the alternate member so far, but becoming a full member soon. I come from the Consumers Union, and just briefly, we have a couple, like you said, mentioned, we have some very good best practices regarding the school meals in Finland, and one thing that is rather new but very well working is actually in many schools they're offering not just lunch for free, but breakfast. And that means that, for example, on the vocational level, like when children are there are many dropouts, but actually they really, really want to come to school because they want to get the free meal, the free breakfast, and that's a good start for the school day. And then when they eat the healthy breakfast and the healthy lunch, even if they eat badly after the school, they have already received a lot of healthy food. And one best practice that has worked very well to how to make children and adolescents to eat a salad, actually take the salad and eat it, is actually that you have to serve them separately. That you never force them to, salads, cucumbers, whatever. They're in separate boxes. And that made a huge difference. So that they can actually choose. So these kind of small best practices, when they are shared, they're not actually there. It didn't actually raise the costs very much, or in some cases not at all, because students are feeling so much better, and there's less cost on other side. So basically, yes, thanks, and I just wanted to share these best practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and maybe just to pick up on this question to Karen. So, what do you see the biggest obstacles in relation in this relation to make progress in the area of children to make progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals? So. Thank you very much. And maybe, Leonardo, would you start, please?
So, on school meals, whatever you have as best practices, clearly the Finnish case, we know it. We had a commissioner from Finland. That's why we are part of the School Meals Coalition. There is a link. We know the dynamics within the EU. We also know the limitations in our partner countries in terms of cold storage, in terms of availability, in terms of finance. Remember, the EU member states have strong financial commitments. Not easy when you are in debt, when you basically have highly exposed indebtedness of our developing countries, and then you tell them 2 school meals, fine, the EU can help, and we have 15 countries, but the question of sustainability of all this, and in terms of cold storage and chains which are not broken, and you have SPS, sanitary and phytosanitary risks, that's something that has to be factored if you are, I don't know, in Mali or Niger or in sub-Saharan Africa. So that nuance has to be done. Who are our allies? We need to search for new allies. I don't need to tell you, the natural allies are those who are close to us. If I need something today, it's the Swiss and the Norwegians, UK in and out. They are more allies now, but the relationship is FCDO has also cut. That's also, the debate out there that even in some of our member states, some ODA funding will be cut for defense funding. And if we are surprised about the UK doing this, we need also to do some soul searching, including the member states, of whether this is tactical or not. But these are the decisions that everyone is taking in terms of defense spending. It's not me to say this is not good or ODA has to be maintained. But there aren't many allies out there. But these allies need to be built and cultured. You can't disengage with China at one point in time. You can't disengage with India. You can't disengage with the Gulf. You can't disengage with Africa. But those allies, you need to build gradual alliances. As you know, our commissioner and the college went to India. You give a clear signal why you want India, the Central Asians. These are evolving and geopolitics, but it's clear that if in the multilateral space, if it's not the EU, a bit Switzerland and Norway, that core is under threat, because then it's Canada, Japan a bit in and out, and G7, as you know, with a disengaged Trump administration on multilateralism, G7 is not even a cohesive group. Until yesterday it was. So these are the challenges that we have been encountering and will continue encountering until maybe the US administration settles down in terms of what I call the short-term dust settling. We'll see what happens after summer.
Thank you. And now I'm looking if Karen is still connected with us. So the biggest challenges for the UNICEF network, what have you identified?
Thanks. I mean, yeah, it's hard to limit it to one, but just if I think about what young people are telling us in terms of the food system and how they experience the food system, a couple of things come to mind. One is just the proliferation of misinformation through the media and advertising and marketing of products. So, you know, we see a lot of health and nutrition claims on products that provide a lot of misinformation and make choices, healthy choices, difficult. The exposure of children, in particular young children, to aggressive marketing on social media platforms, and with all the individualised algorithms, it's really hard to get a handle of how impactful that's actually being. I think already Leonard mentioned it, the contrast between, you know, the need for or the want for a healthy diet, but then of course the issue of affordability is an issue. And then just in terms of policy dialogue and making the private sector and conflict of interest, we're seeing is an important factor in shaping the food system. And we of course we would like to see children being put first before private sector interests. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Karen. So I think with this we are at the end of our first panel this afternoon. Thank you very much, dear Karen, dear Leonardo, for sharing with us the work you are doing. And I think there was also a clear message to us, so that the civil society, the organized civil society, has a role to play in clearly, well, stating what the expectations are of the civil society. And I think, Piroshka, this is a great load of work and responsibility, I think, to carry over our assessment and recommendations in this process. So thank you very much for your active participation in this first panel. And I think we are now breaking for coffee for 5 minutes, so it's a short coffee. And then we continue with the second panel, and it will be chaired by our colleague, Antje Gerstein. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Antje. I have opened your microphone.
Hi. I just wanted to check whether it works.
It works. We see you, we hear you. I think we hear you very well now. I have a sign from the interpreters to ask you if you could continue speaking, please.
Yes, I do. One question: how do we do it when members raise their hand? Will you take over in the room, because I cannot see that?
I could inform you in the chat if that would be an option.
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
I would leave your microphone open all the time, so you can activate and deactivate it yourself whenever you deem necessary.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Would you have any other questions?
No, I think I'm fine.
Great.
So just tell me, because I never know. We are talking about the UN Food Systems Summit. That is UNFSS. How do you pronounce it? Like,
I think it's safer to mention UNFSS or the full name.
So I say UN Food Systems Summit, right?
Yes.
That's what I say. Yeah,
that's quite concise as well.
Yeah, okay. And I read that Marion Picot will not be coming. So the first speaker is Katrin Heeren.
Yes, she's present with us in the room.
And then in the row as they are listed here, right?
Yes, Maria Diaz, she has connected online. Mr.
Okay.
Ivan Ivanov is in the room. Paula Placu should be connected remotely. She's there. And we have just a second, we have a remark from the interpreters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And just a kind request, if you could hold the microphone because it's brushing
like
against
this.
your
Is
skull.
that better?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So it could be even a little bit further away.
I cannot put it in my mouth. No, but
away.
Is that okay?
A bit further away from the mouth.
Further away.
Yes, this.
Okay, like this?
This is perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
But I should hold it. That's what I understand.
Yes, because it's rubbing on the scarf.
Okay.
And it's making noise.
Yeah. Okay. Understood.
Thank you very much. And for the rest of the panel, Paola Placu is connected remotely and Mr. Ilias Grampas is here with us.
Okay. Paola Placu. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. All good.
Thank you very much. Just one more. Madame Paula Placu, good afternoon. I've opened your microphone. If you hear me, could you please press mic and cam to test your connection? Madame Placu?
Can you hear me?
Yes. We could briefly hear you. We do not see you yet.
I pushed the button mic and cam. Should I push anything else?
Just a second. Well, you only have one camera, so I would kindly ask you to reconnect to Interaxio because we cannot see you and the interpreters cannot.
I will connect again then. Perfect.
In that case, thank you. Madam Placu, I see you're back.
Is it working now?
Yes. Now
perfect.
we hear you and we see you. So if you could say a couple of sentences for the interpreters, please.
Yes. Good morning. Happy to be here and talk in this meeting. Should I say something else? Can you understand me?
Hello, I'm the head of interpretation team. Could you maybe just push your microphone down a little bit? It's a little close to your mouth, so we can hear. And now maybe try saying a couple of sentences.
Sure. Is it working better?
That's
okay.
better. That's
perfect.
Better. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Would you have any questions at this stage?
No, all here. Thank you.
And you will not have a presentation, as far as I understand. Okay. So when the turn comes to you, the president will give you the floor, and I will open the microphone. So the same procedure.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a nice meeting. Good afternoon, Madam Diaz.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you, but allow me to ask you to say a couple of sentences while I switch off the microphone to get feedback from the interpreters?
Yes, of course. Good morning, good afternoon. Testing 1, 2, 3. Is that okay?
Just a couple of more sentences, please.
Okay. Okay, so hello, my name is Maria. I'm based at SDSN. Yes.
We got the thumbs up, so perfect.
Okay, good.
And you will not have a presentation as far as I understood?
No, yes, that is correct.
Okay, and would you have any questions at this stage?
Just one question. So I have 5 minutes. Someone will let me know if the 5 minutes run out, or
Yes,
is it flexible?
I think there is certain level of flexibility. The president, which will be Madame Antje Gerstein, she would interfere if you are running too much over time.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much and have a nice meeting.
Dear colleagues, dear colleagues, we should start the second part of this afternoon session. So I'm going to give the floor to Antje Garnstein, my very good colleague, who is going to moderate this part of the meeting. Antje, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you, Piroshka. I think we have not even an hour left. That's why I would really like to enter immediately into the debate of our second panel of this afternoon, which is on the leverages from the vision on agriculture and food to support the coalition for actions in the transformation of food systems. And we would like to hear from you, dear stakeholders, as you are here, how you believe that the UN Food Systems Summit can further upscale actions from the EU in the global context. And I mean, we've heard in the panel before the global challenges and the overall geopolitical situation is highly, highly critical. So I think we are all having this situation in our head, like how all this ever going to work. But at the same time, we know we have to continue trying. So I think this is probably the motto for this afternoon. I'd like to introduce the panelists. So we have Katrien Heren with us, Director Environment from Food Drink Europe. Very welcome. We have Maria Diaz, Senior Manager, Fable Consortium, from the, who will talk to us remotely. We have Ivan Ivanov, Political Secretary, Agriculture Sector from the European Federation of Food, Agriculture and Tourism Trade Unions. We have Paola Placco, Senior Policy Advisor at the Fair Trade Advocacy Office. And last not least, Ilias Grampas, Deputy Director, European Bureau for Conservation and Development. So very warm welcome to the panelists. And I would like to give the floor immediately so that we take use of our time. Katrien Heren from Food Drink Europe, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Antje, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, so starting from the question that you raised for our panel, how can the UNFSS further upscale actions from EU in the global context? I would like to start with the summary of the UN Food Systems Summit, where it says, in addition to governments, the business community, from small and medium enterprises to multinational corporations, has an important role to play through responsible business practices and innovative solutions to make food systems more sustainable, resilient and equitable, while adapting their practices to ensure all people can access a nutritious and healthy diet. So that's where we come in, Food Drink Europe. Who we are. Food and drink is Europe's largest manufacturing industry. Sometimes that's getting forgotten. It's really the largest manufacturing sector, a strategic sector in the European economy, highly strategic, also important for food security when you're talking about this new debate on defense, but even beyond. So it's really our basis, covering a whole range of commodities and striving for sustainable and resilient food systems relentlessly. So we have been Food Drink Europe has been part of the strategic dialogue on agriculture and food, and with our Director General, Dirk Jacobs, we are also now a member of the European Board of Agriculture and Food, chaired by Commissioner Hansen, as a representative for the food and drink manufacturing industry. In this context, we still today continually stress the importance of looking at agri-food systems overall across the supply chains in an integrated approach, like a collaborative approach across supply chains, as the transformation of the food systems requires exactly that. I think we heard that before. While the vision on agriculture and food still is focusing overwhelmingly on farming only and taking it separately from the food chain, which we like to bring together, because that really leaves us with the question, what are the concrete measures to support Europe's over 300,000 food and drink enterprises, which is the essential link actually between farm and fork, so really to work together on that. in practice, we are already working, of course, together with EU farmers. We have kind of a symbiotic relationship, facing many of the same challenges, and 70% of all agricultural products go into the food manufacturing. So there is a close relationship, and close relationships at different levels already existing. Some examples are projects on regenerative agriculture or biogas made from manure, in which our member companies work together with farmers, providing specific premiums and schemes to work together really to put in place these practices, which are demanding a lot of upfront costs and funding. We would also like to see more of that to be able to upscale it and not only being linked to the private sector investments currently made. So, for example, there's a partnership with Soil Capital in which farmers are brought together with food processing companies in order to increase the soil health to keep us productive in Europe on agriculture also in the long term. And this could be an interesting model actually for global upscaling as well. On EU policy, just quickly, so where we are working on, it comprises food safety, nutritious diets, as we heard about a bit right now, trade, research and innovation, competitiveness, of course, the word of our time, and now the topics that are more closely covered in the Environment Department that I'm leading at Food Drink Europe. It's on sustainability, human rights, environmental policies, circular economy, packaging, food waste, climate mitigation and adaptation, of course, energy and water resilience. So, and when we are dealing with these topics, we usually have the supply chain approach, because we strongly depend on our supply chains. Just to give you a few numbers also, our sector provides 4.7 million jobs with a turnover of about 1.2 trillion euro. We represent small, micro and large companies, and actually around 99% of all our companies are SMEs, and again 80% of these are micro companies. So it's really a big spectrum dealing with small companies. Then around 75% of the EU's food and drink products are destined for the single EU market, but also the EU is the largest exporter worldwide on food and drink products, reaching around 182 billion euro with the exports. So there is a close link on this last point, as you see, to the global level. Commodities also are sourced from within the EU as well as from globally, like everywhere in the world. If you only think about cocoa, coffee, soy, or palm oil, we have supply chains that really are linking the whole world together. Therefore, we also strongly support EU policies dealing with these areas, such as the EU deforestation and forced labor regulations, and, for example, the objectives of the Corporate Sustainability Reporting and Due Diligence Directive, which enable us to work more on sustainability across the supply chains. But back to the question now, how can the UN Food System Summit further upscale the actions from the EU in the global context? So first of all, the EU food and drink industry is a driver of rural economies and guarantees food security and sustainable food systems. So we are a global leader in quality, innovation and trade in this field. The EU regulations and standards, the EU still is quite a sustainability trendsetter in this area at global level, and many other geographies or countries are following suit. For example, the European deforestation regulation, there countries that are producing cocoa, palm oil, coffee, etc., are now starting to follow to implement first policies, so it seems to be a success story and hopefully to be continued in the near future. So these are all areas to leverage impact also at the global level. Then, in terms of innovation, of course, we need a lot of innovation in the food and drink system to keep up the sustainability also in the agricultural field, dealing with climate change, dealing with nutrient loss and many other challenges. So these regulations that we have in place provide a role for innovation. So more innovations are coming up when you have stricter regulations, and you also have a place to roll out these new innovations, which can then be transferred globally and used globally. Europe actually became a hub for food tech innovation, with a growing number of companies transforming the way we produce, consume, and also think about food. These pioneering companies are developing, leveraging cutting-edge technology, such as plant-based ingredients, fermentation, artificial intelligence, in many different appliances, and sustainable production methods to address some of the most pressing challenges facing the food industry today, including sustainability, food security, and health.
Using the skills and techniques as well as technologies and the models that we applied successfully globally, and also working across the supply chains really with partners in many other countries, in the SDG context is key, I think, for further action. So there is clearly a link to be made. Thank you.
Antje, please press mic and cam.
I'm sorry. So thank you very much, Catherine, for being so disciplined with the time. And thank you for your input. So I will lead directly to our next speaker, which is Maria Diaz. She's also connected remotely. Maria, please, you have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Good. Okay, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I'm the senior manager of the FABLE consortium, and just very quickly, I would like to introduce you who FABLE is, for those of you who don't know. FABLE stands for Food, Agriculture, Biodiversity, Land Use, and Energy. It's a global network of researchers in more than 24 countries who use modeling tools to design long-term strategies or long-term pathways for sustainable food and land use systems. So what does this mean? It means that we use evidence data to draw trajectories in the long term that allow us to meet multiple goals at the same time, simultaneously. And the issue with agri-food systems is that there is always some sort of conflict or trade-off, let's say, between food security, increasing agricultural productivity, climate change, mitigating emissions, protecting biodiversity, and ensuring prosperous rural livelihoods and trade, right? So this is what we do for a living. We believe the UNFSS Summit is the only place right now at the global level where we can discuss the transformation, the integrated transformation of food systems. We recently had the opportunity to work with the ESC to conduct a study on where the EU is right now in their achievement to SDG 2. And I think that the EU has a tremendous role, especially right now, not only in achieving SDG 2, and which is zero hunger, food security, and sustainable agriculture, but other SDGs at the same time at the EU and abroad. And just wanted to share a few insights of what we found. So first, well, SDG 2 is off track, not only in the EU, but also globally. I believe in the previous session, you already covered very well the challenges that the EU faces, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I would like to share with you a little bit of the insights that we found when we model alternative futures for the EU based on what we see today. And we recently produced 3 different pathways. So one was business as usual. The other one was what would happen if the EU actually met or followed through their current commitments and pledges. And what would happen if the EU would become a little bit more ambitious and try to stay within planetary boundaries? So a little bit even more than just the regional priorities. And we found that the shift towards healthier diets is just essential and key to meet SDG 2 and other SDGs. When we're talking about shift to healthier diets, I just wanted to say, because the last session, it was mentioned that healthy diets can have many different definitions. In this case, we use national dietary guidelines from the EU countries. And if there wasn't the one that it was, then they use the Eat Lancet diet. But overall is rebalancing protein intake to increase a little bit more of plant-based proteins and fresh fruits and vegetables. And the issue here is, and I think the question that we should ask ourselves is, if we want to promote healthier diets, is our agri-food system ready to meet that demand? And the answer is no. if we want to ensure that there is enough fresh fruits and vegetables available, affordable, to meet the demand that we want to promote, the current land use at the EU does not allow us that. And using modeling tools, the only way we managed to meet that demand in 30 years was by reducing food loss and waste. This is the only way in which we were able to meet the demand without increasing the land used to produce fresh fruits and vegetables, because land has to come from somewhere, right? And it's either that or increasing imports. And we don't, I believe that according to the Vision for Agriculture and Food recently published, I don't think we want to increase our reliance on imports, right? We want to increase competitiveness and productivity. And this is the one of the second insight that we found. And the issue here is that when we increase productivity, we need to be careful with not increasing nitrogen. Because the problem is that even in the most sustainable scenarios, synthetic nitrogen application is projected to increase, and we fall short. We fall short from the EU target. So, what does this mean? It means that the UN Food System Summit is the great way to have this discussion. But before we go into this discussion, we need to really do some soul searching, like I was said in the previous session, in which if the EU really wants to transform their agri-food systems, there needs to be the conditions in place to ensure that the transition is just, is inclusive, and that the changes that we want to promote from the consumer side do not affect negatively the production side. So I think that the Vision for Agriculture and Food, for instance, already has some interesting positive opportunities to increase multi-stakeholder dialogue, which is something that we call on and we believe it's important. And also, lastly, we think that another thing that should be considered, especially for the UNFS discussions, is the use of modeling tools, because it really it provides an evidence base for these discussions. For example, one thing we notice and we think it could be useful for the EU to improve the EU modeling tools is being able to represent the diversity of livestock production systems in these modeling tools, because that way we can assess the different impacts on multiple indicators and we can offer new perspectives on the evolution of the sector. And this can be directly relevant to the EU vision for the livestock sector that is going to be developed. So these are the kinds of insights that we have. I invite you to read our study. And I think that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think this conflict of goals that we have, that is the inherent problematic part in that whole discussion, which we will constantly seek to find solutions. Thank you, Maria. Next speaker is Ivan Ivanov, who is in the room, I think. You are from the European Federation of Food, Agriculture and Tourism Trade Unions. Please tell us how you see the impact of the vision on agriculture and food that has been released on our discussion.
Yes, thanks a lot, Mrs. Chair, and thanks for inviting EFAT to this very interesting but also very important hearing. Let me start with the remark that EFAT, as a European Trade Union Federation, we are not just active at the European level, but also at the international, because we serve at the same time also as a regional organization within our global federation, IOF. Let's say now on the question, on the topic, I will focus more on the socio-economic side as a trade union federation, and I'm not saying that, let's say, the other aspects are not relevant as well, but I think also these aspects, understanding also sustainability in a holistic approach is very important. And we see definitely impact leverages also from the recently published vision on agriculture and food. We were actually very positive in our reaction to that. Firstly, because we see there also, let's say, leverages impact to improve the economic sustainability, which is also important in the end also for workers, because we acknowledge that, let's say, farmers, and we know that the European farming is characterized of small solo enterprise structures, and they need also to have, let's say, the economic means to sustain, but also to create jobs and to provide good working conditions. And that's why we see, and this is also in line very much with some of the sustainability goals at international level to ensure decent work and economic growth. We see there are some impacts, some leverages on how to improve farmers' income, farmers' position in the food chain. I think concrete actions are, for instance, the revision of the directive on unfair trading practices, which in the end will also allow, let's say, farmers employing workers to have the means, the economic means also to provide and to improve the working conditions. We see also some actions on the European side with providing transparency on the margins in the food chain, also with the recently established observatory. And I think this is also another good example which needs to be acknowledged, which might serve also as, let's say, as inspiration, as a good example also for beyond the European context. A second point which I would like to praise as a possible leverage, let's say, from the vision for the international context, is the role the public, let's say, the public side might play with the way it sources, it procures food. There's a commitment from the side of the President of the European Commission, but it's also stated in the vision that the current directive on public procurement will be revised, and I think this is also a great opportunity to grasp in order to, let's say, to improve the directive in a way that it also serves to improve social sustainability in terms of improving the working conditions in the sector, but also improving the collective bargaining coverage in the sector, which is quite low, but also to pursue environmental sustainability, environmental objectives. And we know that there's some untapped potential also with that tool. We were also pleased to see that the vision talks also a lot about, this is also one of the 4 priorities of the communication. It talks about workers' rights protection, about working and living conditions, which is something which we are pleased to see there. We're actually not very used to see references to collective bargaining and workers' protection in communications by DG Agri, but this is something new and definitely a positive development. Surely the communication is not very concrete in that matter, but we would like to see also, let's say, more concrete commitments, direction, social dimension of the common agricultural policy, tackling abusive subcontracting, but also regulating labor intermediation, which is also quite common, I believe, not just in Europe, but also in the global context, but also the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, which was also recently adopted, and which is also a main tool, not just for the European context, but I think also for the global context to sustain environmental policies, environmental sustainability, but also human rights. I think this is, we would like to have also commitment, more binding commitment on that side. We see now that it's basically now with the omnibus package that, let's say, the provisions, there's a proposal for the directive to be weakened in its, let's say, in its provisions, but also to be to get enforced a bit later. And this is something which we are opposing as effort, because we believe that we don't oppose simplification and simplifying and streamlining procedures, but I think this does not need to go at expenses, let's say, of social standards and protection of human rights and environmental policies. Then a second point I would like to make, and this is also linked to the question of food security and CDG on let's say on no hunger, for instance, the objective to have no hunger at global level. We see, and this is also something which our federation has been intensively working on in the past few years. We see also the growing importance of financialization in the sector, which eventually also impacts on the food commodity market. And we see also food, let's say, increase incidence of food speculation. I think also that this House has produced also a very useful, a very good opinion on that topic. And this is something also we believe needs to be addressed to a greater extent, also with European policies. So and which is also a question, a matter of global food security, not just let's say it has not just a European dimension, but a global one. Yeah, maybe I will leave it by that with this short introduction, and thanks to you for listening, and I'm looking forward to the discussion then afterwards. Thanks a lot.
Ante, back to you. If you could press mic and cam, please. Dear Ante, if you can hear us, please press mic and cam to activate your microphone and camera.
Okay, so if Antti cannot connect, I'm going to give the floor to our next speaker, Paola Placu, who is a Senior Policy Officer at the Fair Trade Advocacy Office. So please, Paola. Okay, yes. So you are here. Okay, thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Fair Trade Advocacy Office, and apologies for not being there in person with you. Indeed, my name is Paola Placu, and I work at the FTO, where we speak on behalf of the fair trade movement, so fair trade producers, SMEs, national platforms for trade and social justice. And as we can support the coalition for actions, we believe that indeed DC vision for agriculture and food can provide us with a good starting point for reflection. We do welcome the recognition, especially to tackle imbalances in the food chain, where the unfair distribution of revenues and the burden of costs does disproportionately affect farmers and producers. And we do see some key leverages in this vision. For instance, we see that fair has become a buzzword. There is a recognition of the essential value of smallholder farmers in our food systems. I will also highlight, as this previous speaker, how public procurement has been recognized as a very powerful tool. And there is indeed the commitment from the Commission to move beyond the lowest price criterion, which has really led to a race to the bottom, and was also highlighted by the recent 2023 Court of Auditor report, along with the low participation of small and medium enterprises and limited uptake of strategic public procurement. The vision also opens for the first time the possibility of a local criterion by really highlighting the need for high environmental and social standards, which we believe it's paramount because, as we always say at the Fair Trade Advocacy Office, more local doesn't automatically mean more sustainable. So we were very happy to see this as a leverage. I also welcome, as my previous speaker, the recognition and the reinforcement of the Commission to tackle the issue of farmers being systematically forced to sell products below their production cost. And we hope that this is really going to be reflected in the upcoming evaluation of the UTP's directive. And finally, a very good leverage that we see is these partnership dialogues that the Commission wants to introduce, but we really hope that they meaningfully involve third country actors, and particularly those where EU imported and smallholder-driven commodities are predominant. We do understand the Commission's plan to strengthen the reciprocity in production standard, but we really stress that there is a need for open and meaningful stakeholder engagement that really develops inclusive, co-designed and co-implemented mechanism. And this is maybe something that can be also taken into account for the next UNFSS. However, we do see also some shortcomings. In what concerns the external dimension, we believe that this vision is sort of a missed opportunity to drive essential market reforms, because even though the vision acknowledges the need for sustainability, it doesn't address the systemic inequalities that farmers and particularly smallholders face in global supply chain. And also, of course, competition is another buzzword that we see, but the roadmap presented appears to be overly reliant on CAP subsidies, and again, doesn't really address the urgent need for market reforms. Another big gap that we see is the missing role of consumers in shaping fair and more sustainable food system. As FTO, we are also part of an EU Horizon project, which specifically looks at how consumers have been viewed in EU policy makings. And since 2015 until now, we've seen that more often than not, they are only viewed as passive recipients of policies rather than active agents of change. And we saw the same also in this communication. So here again, something that could be addressed. We also regrettably saw that the vision doesn't really provide more support for the organic sector, and it doesn't address the specific negative impacts of the new EU regulation on third country farmers. What we suggest as FTO is really to ensure that this vision supports a just agroecological transitions, and for these concrete actions are needed, such as financial and non-financial support mechanism that can really empower farmers to adopt sustainable practices without having them bear the disproportionate cost of this transition. And proper support can come in the forms of training, infrastructure, and especially market access. And we do believe that taking into account all these measures, the next UNFSS Stocktaking Moment can really be a sort of reality check, so that we ensure that there is real progress, that it's not only market driven, but that really addresses the root causes of why we still don't have sustainable food systems. Thank you so much for your attention. Happy to discuss more after.
Thank you very much. Paola, can you hear me? I'm asking. Yes. Is it working? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. There were some technical issues. Thank you very much, Paola. And now I hand over to Elias Grampas, Deputy Director, European Bureau for Conservation and Development. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gerstein. Thank you also to Madam President, Ms. Calais, and to ESC members for the kind invitation to join this discussion today that finds us very honored on behalf of EBCD. This is a collaboration that we very much value. Just to note that in collaboration with the European Economic and Social Committee in November 2024, we co-organized an event on the contribution of fisheries and aquaculture towards food security. And looking ahead on the 5th of May, we're very happy to join forces once again and launch another event on the way to Nice, to the UN Ocean Conference, and the need for sustainable management of our oceans. And of course, as it might slowly become apparent, I'll be talking about food coming from the ocean today. I'm today joining on behalf of EBCD, that is an international environmental organization founded in 1989 and specializing specifically on fisheries, aquaculture, ocean governance and maritime affairs, with a view to achieving sustainable management of the oceans and all the activities, including, of course, aquatic foods. I think that it's a very timely and a key event today, falling in the broader picture of the preparations for the UN Food System Summit +4. Great momentum is provided as well by the vision of the Commission on Agriculture and Food. And of course, let's not forget, I think Mr. Mitzi stressed that at the same time, the Commission is also working in preparation for the European Oceans Pact. So first of all, is it essential to transform the way that we produce and consume? I think I'm very much preaching to the converted. We all agree that this is essential for environmental sustainability, for social equity, but also for long-term economic prosperity. Has the EU taken a plethora of actions already? We heard a lot by EC representatives during this discussion today, with the Green Deal, with the farm to fork, with the biodiversity strategy and more priorities, I think we really have, among others, a great momentum. Now, looking into the next level, the world is really tackling some unprecedented crisis nowadays. It's essential that our food sectors are attractive, they are prosperous, and they are sustainable. And that's why, on behalf of EBCD, we very much welcome the Commission's proposal. Just like farmers, fishers are also portrayed as essential within that for both food security and ecosystem resilience. I think an important point, however, to make that the majority of the strategy and its measures are tailored to farmers, while it's also important to shed some more attention and light to the contribution of fisheries and aquaculture sectors. And it's exactly the blue dimension, as Mr. Mitzi referred to just before. Interesting enough, in preparation for today's event, I was having a look at the report of the ESC from the Stocktaking Moment of the the United Nations Food System Summit +2, and there was not a single mention to the contribution of fisheries and aquaculture. So I think only 2 years after, we've gone a long way, but of course more needs to be done. So it's essential to ensure that these sectors are not sidelined in policy discussions going to Addis Abeba, and that their contribution to food security are fully recognized. After all, it was underlined in COP28 in Dubai that blue foods, aquatic foods, have a key role to play, and they are recognized as a climate solution as well, not only a solution when it comes to food system transformation. So let's bear in mind also their contribution to livelihoods, to the economy, and to communities that rely on them, especially in coastal and rural areas. Of course, the momentum is great. The discussion takes place at a period when the Commission is finalizing the Oceans Pact referred to before, which is an initiative aiming at promoting sustainable ocean management, but also ensuring the health and the productivity of our oceans. But also at this House, only last week, the European Economic and Social Committee adopted its opinion on the civil society's recommendation towards the European Oceans Pact. And within that, we very much agree on the call towards the European Commission to develop an action plan, an EU-wide action plan for the promotion of blue foods as part of the vision, its vision for agriculture and food. And I think that would be a pivotal opportunity. Zooming out of the EU to the international level, there is important developments as well over there. There is key coalitions. There is a global action network on sustainable food from the oceans and inland waters for food security and nutrition that is led by Norway. And within the umbrella of the Coalitions for Action of the UN Food System Summit, there is also the Aquatic Blue Food Coalition led by Iceland. And EBCD is a key member in both platforms, which serve to really send a strong message that the role of food systems, aquatic food systems, need to be urgently leveraged in international policy fora. So looking ahead, I think what we need to first of all keep in mind is that food is a basic human right. And according to FAO, the world will need 50% more food by 2030 because of a rising population. In this game-changing moment, I would like to reiterate the importance for the inclusion of fisheries and aquaculture in all relevant policies. We've heard some speakers also mention their contribution to the Sustainable Development Goals for improving health, for poverty eradication, for tackling hunger. Of course, they also contribute to SDG 14 on life below water, life on land by reducing pressures to land systems, but also when it comes to partnerships for the goals. Participation of all stakeholders. Mr. Schmidt made an important point on the essential need for promoting multilateralism, and the EU is leading efforts at international fora, and that's an important point to make. Last but not least, we also need to keep in mind that by assisting the sustainable management and the decarbonization of these sectors will further decrease the climate footprint of aquatic food systems. So all in all, I think that we need more food from sustainable fisheries and responsible aquaculture. Essential to keep in mind as well the need to focus on sustainability of the sectors. We need to really leverage the key role of technology and innovation. We need to pay closer attention, of course, to the work of the FAO, and Mr. Fotiu made some excellent remarks to set the scene at the beginning. I would like to also refer to the FAO Blue Transformation Roadmap for 2030 that is mentioning the need to intensify sustainable aquaculture, the need for effective management of all fisheries, but also more lessons learned and success stories on how we can upgrade value chains. And last but not least, as I'm wrapping up my intervention on how can the EU really continue to lead, I think this comes by integrating aquatic blue foods into European but also global food systems discussions, by promoting more communication campaigns and raising more awareness. Just to mention that last week Commissioner Cadiz launched an EU-wide communication campaign on promoting the importance of aquaculture. Of course, facilitating knowledge sharing and capacity building is an equally important point, alongside the need to enhance our finance mechanisms and promote public-private partnerships. Thank you once again. I think we're all very much looking forward to the stocktaking moment in Addis Ababa. And on behalf of EBCD, once again, we're very grateful for this cooperation and looking forward to continuing the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elias. And again, thank you for all speakers, that you've been so disciplined with regard to the to the timing. So I think, Piroshka, I hope I'm right. We have something like 10 minutes left for discussion. Yeah, I see you nodding. Okay. I took some notes and realized that you, I think all contributions were having some common denominator on the shortcomings. One was shortcomings, I mean, in terms of the vision, of course. I am talking about the issue which we heard from Catherine, the focus on purely farming instead of focusing on the entire food supply chain. That is, I think, a very important aspect, particularly when we talk about the achievements that have been done in terms of dialogue. Then the second missed opportunity maybe is the external dimension. So I think it is very EU focused. Probably big parts of the vision were drafted when we did not really understand the dimension of what is happening, particularly across the Atlantic. So maybe it would have been written now in a bit of a different way. Then we have the issue of several goals that are in conflict, and I think this is the everlasting core of the whole issue in this discussion, which we will have. How can we raise productivity, achieve transformation towards more sustainability, and catch up with SDG 2 and feed all the people that need to be fed by 2030? And we shouldn't forget about the oceans. So those were a bit the takeaways. And I would like now to open the floor for your questions to the panelists, and then call for a second and last round. As I cannot see the room, I would ask you, Piroshka, too.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Antti. Yes, Branko, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have two questions to Maria. First, I was quite surprised by the statement that we are not able to produce more vegetables and fruit, or I didn't understand correctly. I would be very interested in this kind of analysis and data, if possible, to get them. Otherwise, I agree that the problem of wasted food in developed world is large and that more action is needed. And the second, to Catherine, can the demands of a large part of consumers for a low prices means pressure on the food industry to delay the process of adapting to sustainable systems? Because after inflation, there are demands and a pressure to lower the prices of the food. Thank you.
Okay, next.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr.
Next.
Dufek, and then Andreas, and then
Okay.
me.
There is no microphone. Microphone for the speaker, please. I've heard a lot of visions, a lot of things that happen, but still we miss one great vision. The EU is paying out a lot of funds to farmers, food industry, and it is regrettable that this vision does not mention collective bargaining. That will all hinge on collective bargaining. We need a social dimension of agriculture, and remember that farmers have the lowest income, and very often they have very low standard of living, and of course living in rural areas is sometimes much more complicated than living in cities. So we should, within this process, talk about this. Also, President of the Commission mentions that collective bargaining will be a priority of the EU. We should remember this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dufek. Andreas, please.
Thank you, Piroshka. I would like to start with a remark or a reflection, maybe. Maria and Paola touched upon this, the question of well, are food systems ready to deliver? And then I think it was also Branko, like it went in the direction, are we able to produce more fruit and veg, certain types of fruit and veg, in case there is the need or the demand for it? And I think there is a point that farmers are more and more missing an adequate toolbox to produce special crops or minor crops, small crops, where the industry, where there's less, let's say, economic power behind, and the industry is not developing special plant protection products, for instance, for such varieties. And I think we have an issue there when we are discussing or talking about affordable products in an adequate quality. Our farmers also need the tools to actually produce these products in Europe. And this is linked to the other area of trade and reciprocity, and I think it is a very important, let's say, lever in the vision that it's about fair trade and fairness also for European farmers, that if certain active substances are considered harmful for the environment and we ban them to use or to work with them in Europe, and at the same time we allow products produced outside in Europe with the use of such active substances and bringing the products on the European market. So this is an unfair competition for the European farmers, and I think this is a very, very important entry point to look at. To this, I think this is an issue which needs to be solved, and it is in the vision, and the Commissioner is referring to that problem. And a question to Katrin. In the session or in the panel before, Karen Haag from UNICEF, when I asked her about the biggest challenges for the UNICEF institution in relation to children and let's say diets and nourishment, she said, well, the biggest challenge is misinformation and aggressive marketing. Of course, she was referring to the global, I guess, to a global situation. How do you comment on this? So, from the perspective of the European food and drink industry, these are quite strong words, misinformation and aggressive marketing methods as a problem for the health condition or of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. I've got two comments or remarks or questions. First, to Ivan, please. You just mentioned, and we often talking about farmers' income, which is of utmost importance. As we know, this is the most important thing. But what effort? So what can you do exactly? What kind of measures do you have to support this? So farmers' income, how can be supported? This is one, I know already the answer, but you didn't mention that. This is one thing. And the other one to Mr. Krampas. Thank you very much for your contributions. Yes, so aquaculture is getting more and more important for our committee as well. As you mentioned, we were participating in a lot of events related to the issue. And if you have read our opinion, voted last week during the plenary, we just proposed, and here I'm looking at the Commission as well, the so-called sea farm to fork strategy. So which could be as a parallel, strategy as it was, the farm to fork, because we just consider that people who are working at coastal areas are the same farmers in a way. So actually they should have all the considerations what we dedicate to the farmers generally. So what is your opinion about that? Is that feasible or not, this kind of idea? Thank you very much.
So thank you. Is Stoyan still on the speakers list or no? No. Okay.
Okay, so Antti, I think it's time to give back the floor to our speakers to react.
Yes, please. So I would call the other way around. So please, Ilias Krampas, will you start and then pass on to Paola, and then we just go backwards.
Thank you very much. I think that indeed within the opinion of ESC, the call for a sea farm to fork strategy is a great suggestion, especially looking into relevant stats. We see that at European level, aquaculture is unfortunately stagnated, regardless of the best of our efforts. So I think it's very much a great idea towards the promotion of sustainable and responsible aquaculture. Blue Foods is once again the main message on behalf of EBCD for this discussion today. So we're very happy to support that. And of course, there's bigger challenges, of course, linked with this that we need to tackle in close collaboration. Unfortunately, we need to pay more attention to social angles, to reskilling our workforce. Unfortunately, we also need to pay more attention to attracting younger generations. That's another important element. We have an aging workforce in that essence. We rely a lot on imports. So seeing all these angles addressed in the upcoming strategy, I think that would be important as well. Thank you.
Yes. Then I would ask Paola Placu. I think there were several questions also addressed to you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for these remarks. Indeed, I think an important point that was raised also in the vision is the point on pesticides. And I think it goes even farther in the sense that, as you know, also the EU bans certain harmful pesticides to be used here in the EU, but then allows their production and their selling outside the EU. And then, of course, these products, again, come back to our plates, to our own market. So, again, we see here the importance of addressing market structures that are still unbalanced and unfair. And when it comes to the fair trade movement, perhaps I should have emphasized this before, like we are not speaking only of producers and SMEs in third countries, but also the ones that are here in Europe. We have a lot of local fair trade producers, especially in France, Italy, in Greece. And for them, it's about the possibility of also competing fairly. Hence why I spoke again about how important it is public procurement, because the way that things are right now in the current framework, we have conventional products, food that it's cheap, bad food that we serve also in the canteens of our kids, that it's preferred to good quality one because it's supposed to be not cheap and it's more expensive, but it takes into account this whole other dimension of sustainability, of health and quality that should actually be rewarded instead of being put aside. And for this, we need to unlock these powerful tools that we already have. And public procurement, I would like to emphasize, is really one of them. And of course, also, as we hear a lot, it's not about putting EU producers against not EU ones, but make it so that's the condition which they operate and that they are compensated in a fair way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Ivan, the question on farmers' income was addressed to you and in a very mean way by Piroshka because she said she knows the answer. So you have to give the right answer now.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I have a good suggestion, I think. But yeah, indeed, I was a bit cautious about the time because 5 minutes are also not much. That's why I didn't want to outline more concrete what we're demanding. But indeed, EFAT is working for some time on, let's say, or is demanding also the revision of the UTP directive with a particular objective to ban selling below production costs. Because this we believe eventually also has implications on workers. If farmers don't have, let's say, systematically forced to sell below production costs, they will not have the economic means also to offer good working conditions to create jobs for workers. And this is also the reason, and this is why also EFAT has a mandate to work on that. I mean, it goes also a bit beyond that, with more general with the position of farmers in the food chain, with let's say how to tackle concentration of power in the food chain, how to define or redefine dominant share, let's say, in the food chain. But this is like our main focus is the selling below production costs, and eventually also how to transmit, let's say, this achievement of fair income also to workers in the end. And this is also a good keyword, which also Mr. Dufik mentioned, collective bargaining. Since this is also, let's say, our main tool as a trade union, together with employer associations, to negotiate collectively good working conditions. So also, let's say, the fair incomes which are achieved at the farms level are also submitted to workers, transmitted to workers in the end.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for the brief answer. I have to say it provokes a lot of thoughts and food for further discussion, I have to say, what you just said, but we don't have the time now, but to be continued in other formats. So Maria and then Katrin, please.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I'll try to be very brief, and maybe perhaps that's why the misunderstanding, because I tried to talk as in 5 minutes as I could. Just to start, so the study, I invite you to take a look at it. It's called Sustainable Food Systems as a Driver for the Implementation of the SDGs, Taking Stock of SDG 2 and Future Perspectives. It's at the ESC website. And there you can see a little bit with more detail all the scenarios and the assumptions that were included for the study. But just to say that the comment about fresh vegetables and fruits is not that the EU right now can't produce more fresh fruits and vegetables, is that if we assume a shift towards this kind of diet where there will be a higher intake of fresh fruits and vegetables according to whether it is national dietary guidelines or Eat Lancet diets, then the way as it is, like the land cover as it is right now, the land as it's used, and the evolution that it will take, the way we can meet that demand in the model was reducing food loss and waste on fresh on fruits and vegetables and increasing imports. Just as a reminder, in these three pathways that I mentioned, the business as usual, national commitments, and the global sustainability, and we are trying to meet different multiple SDGs at the same time, so multiple goals. So it's not only the dietary shift towards healthier diets, but also is the decrease of use of nitrogen, phosphorus, decrease of emissions, protection of biodiversity. And we have a series of targets to assess that. So in the model, when you try to meet all these multiple goals at the same time, something has to give. And what is interesting about this tool is exactly that it shows you the potential trade-offs that you would have to face if you follow a certain course of action. And then it doesn't mean that it's bad or good. It's just so now we know that if we want to promote this, then we would need to have, the productive capacity. And if we want to do it with little input, in certain organic or agroecological way or whatever it is, then we need to understand, what would be the trade-off. More land, then we need that land has to come from somewhere. So where would that land come from, right? Would it be grass? Or, so these are the kinds of questions that we ask in this study, and that I invite you to take a look. And yeah.
Okay.
So
thank you very much. Thank you.
Sorry for interrupting you, but I have to thank the interpreters who is already finishing, because we are running out of time. So before giving the floor to Catherine, I would like to thank you again for your job. And now we continue in English.
Okay, yes, so I will continue in English, as I did before. So thank you very much for these very interesting questions. I will start with the first one on, is actually the demand of consumers, of a large part of consumers, for much lower prices on food a problem and would be delaying this whole process? Yes, definitely it is a problem. So we are currently, together with the farmers, we are facing the same issues. We are getting pressure from the last chain that is confronted with the consumers on lowering the prices, while at the same time increasing sustainability and increasing practices. As I explained before, there are lots of initiatives already on the way in which we work together with farmers on regenerative agriculture, on other kind of reducing emissions across the supply chains and in the production. So this is definitely quite a problem for us. And I would just like to make a comparison with the energy prices that we faced, like when the Ukraine war started and this whole crisis started. There was no question of lowering the energy prices or giving less to the energy providers, but there was money coming from the government to come in on this. So I'm just wondering, this is just an idea that comes to my mind now, so why couldn't that come from somewhere else? Because the production costs are still the same and we want still farmers and the food processing to be working also in the future. So yes, unfair trading practices is also one related legislation that comes up to it, where we are closely linking ourselves with the farmers in terms of obtaining the necessary prices. And then we have been following all these policies, Clean Industrial Deal, Affordable Energy Action Plan that are coming up, and rarely are we as a sector targeted with positive incentives. It's on crucial sectors like automotive and pharma industry. Well, there are crucial sectors, definitely, but food is as well. So we would also be waiting to see that we can speed up and scale up the initiatives that we do at small scale to a larger scale by receiving respective initiatives for incentives for that. So that's on this question. Then on your question on UNICEF and the comment on diets and nutrition, well, these are quite heavy, like on misinformation, aggressive marketing. It's a bit difficult to answer if it's very global and not very specific. So what does it exactly mean? So maybe, and I won't be going into detail because I'm representing our environment department, so it's a different department treating these kind of issues, but maybe just so much that we are working on nutritious food and providing information that is necessary, well, as is required. So we comply with all these regulations, continually trying to have a more nutritious food for nutritious diets and healthy diets. And then also labeling, there's a lot of labeling going on there, so of course we respect these labeling requirements. But I cannot go into too much detail because I'm not more closely involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katrin. And we are 4 minutes over the time, so I give the floor back to Piroshka, who will be closing the event.
Thank you very much for moderating this part, Angie. But before wrapping up, I give the floor to Mr. Rizzo, please.
All very relevant for our sort of positioning. However, I would like to have a word of caution in terms of what the Economic and Social Committee can provide in terms of visioning, because here there are lots of potential contradictory positioning. For example, typology of trade and food security. Do we want open trade, strategic autonomy, both? You know that this week we might be hit by trade, tariffs and wars. So what are the implications of all this in terms of trade and food security? And you know that there is a reference to strategic autonomy and trying to, what does this mean to the external? There's a lot of reference even of Fair Trade Europe about internal and external aspects in the vision. How much do we want to go into the external dynamics without focusing on the internal, and can the two be reconciled? So that is the first thing. I haven't heard much about the regulatory aspects. You know, EUDR, I deal with EUDR myself. This has been unwritten for our partner countries. So to what extent is regulation a carrot and stick where we show leadership, but also not be boomeranged back in terms of the geopolitics? This is also important, and it's important to have a bit of a cohesive view. And last but not least, I fully agree on the social dialogue, but there's a lot of work on the true cost of food, not least from FAO, market regulation, but how much regulation do we need in terms of accompanying measures and putting a vision for agri-food systems? There isn't firepower out there to support all the sectors. Now the question is, how much finance ministries within the EU want to support the automotive, the energy and food, but also not distorting international markets and having a level playing field across the globe. So that's something also maybe the committee can also elaborate. This will come up from our partner countries. They will hit us a lot, I can tell you. When we go to the external world, they hit us a lot with the stick of regulation and over-regulation vis-à-vis what other international partners do, including the US, which don't do over-regulation.
Thank you very much for your remarks, indeed. And now I'm finishing. So I'm concluding this meeting. Thank you very much for your active participation. Just to say that the conclusions of and outcomes of this event, they are going to be presented in Geneva this week on Thursday. So I'm going to have a short speaking slot in this regard. So thank you very much for your active participation and that you didn't give up even if we run out of time. Thank you very much for the interpreters and the Secretariat as well for their efforts convening this very interesting meeting. Thank you again and have a nice afternoon.